going to make another move. And the good thing is, it seems like they have a lot of options based on the numerous reports. But the Lakers seem to be wanting to upgrade their guard position, which does make sense. After the Rui Hachimura trade, you basically got your front court locked in. Now it's about upgrading the back court, getting those locked up for the foreseeable future. And the Lakers really want to get pieces that not only help now, but help for the next several years. And obviously the deal that is the cheapest, right? That's what the Lakers want. Best value for cheapest price that can actually make an impact now and for the foreseeable future, whether it becomes an asset that you could use to trade or an asset that you can grow and develop. And right off the bat, the Toronto deal is probably arguably the best deal the Lakers could get as far as like if they really want guard play, right? Gary Trent Jr. is a young, solid 23-year-old, 6'5", 3-and-D type player that would fit in seamlessly. Like these two guys are basically your backcourt for the foreseeable future. They're both young enough to stick around for the long term. I've said this before. If you took Siakam and OG Anunoby and you basically swapped them with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, how good are the Toronto Raptors? They're probably the best team in the league or up there as one of the best teams in the league, right? Well, that's basically essentially what you're doing here. You're getting these two guys. You got Rui Hachimura, Anthony Davis, LeBron James. That's your starting five. You're good to go, right? Like you're probably one of the best teams. You got shooting. Fred VanVleet is probably one of the best point guards in the league next to LeBron James, because LeBron James is going to have the ball 90% of the time. And so have a point guard that can play off the ball and shoot the three, although he's not having the best shooting season. How much is that? Is that he's just on a Toronto team that isn't very good and everyone's kind of underachieving, where a fresh change of scenery, that could be a huge thing. Plus, clutch clients, right? Both of these guys are now clutch clients, which I think is very interesting. And obviously, whenever somebody now signs with Clutch, it's like, oh, he's going to LeBron and the Lakers, which is very interesting given the timing in which this happened. This deal would also probably be the most expensive, but I do think it's a deal that's very realistic, right? How many teams are going to give up a bunch of assets for these two guys that could just leave and walk away? How many teams want to pay heavily for these two guys? Because if you're the Lakers and you trade for these guys, you have to essentially give them whatever they want, right? So you're giving Fred VanVleet probably 25 to 30 million a year for the next, 4 years. Gary Trent's probably getting, 22 to 25 million a year for the next 4 years. You're basically locked in. I really like the idea of Gary Trent Jr. Just because of his age, his youth, his growth, development. He's only going to, you'd imagine, get better. And worst case, like let's say, because a lot of people bring up Max Christie, right? Well, if Max Christie is your shooting guard for the future, like one, it doesn't hurt to have too much talent, especially 3-and-D style shooting guards. But let's say Max Christie turns into like, the second coming of Kobe Bryant, right? So many people think he looks like a young Kobe. Let's say he evolves into like half of that, right? And it's like, okay, he's clearly the better guy. Well, it's not like you can't trade Gary Trent Jr., right? He's still going to have value. I mean, you could have Gary Trent for the next 10 years and he'd still be in his prime. That's the real piece. That's the real value. And it makes a lot of sense if you're giving up first round picks, because he's a guy that's going to be here very likely beyond those picks. So therefore, it's like, okay, well, our hope is to get a guy in that draft that is comparable to Gary Trent Jr. Fred VanVleet is a guy, 3-and-D style point guard that could really kind of be beneficial, right? LeBron's always done really well next to those kind of point guards, George Hills, Mario Chalmers, guys like that. So he can knock down the ball. These two, I think, would be the best trade as far as like, getting that backcourt along with your front court locked up for the foreseeable future. And you got these two, Rui Hachimura, for the next, several years as like your foundation pieces going forward. Once LeBron leaves, AD, you decide, are we keeping him? Are we going to trade him? If you end up trading him, you're probably going to get some good assets. Maybe you get another star or two, or maybe Gary Trent turns into that guy, right? Or Rui Hachimura turns into that guy. And now you have these pieces that, okay, well, now we just need a piece here and there and we're good to go. So I do think that this may be the best deal, but it's also probably the most expensive. So what could the Lakers do that would be sort of in the market of a cheaper deal that could still have some value. I think Terry Rozier is another realistic. Again, I'm just talking about the ones that I think are the most realistic and very likely to get done, and that the Lakers themselves would actually want to do and make a play on. And Terry Rozier just seems to be that guy. I also am going under the assumption that with the Hornets deal, they're probably not trading Russell Westbrook, unless the Hornets are willing to give up PJ Washington, right? If that's the prize. Terry Rozier, I think, would be a great fit and great compliment. He had a really rough start to the season, but he's really picked it up the last few games, the last like 10 to 12 games. He's shooting now just under 40% from three. He's averaging like 25 a game. And so he's kind of gotten back into the swing of things that we want him to be. He just has such long-term salary, but he is a guy that I think could come in. He could play your starting point guard, or you could play him at the shooting guard, whatever. He's undersized, which is the concern, but he's the guy that would be really beneficial as just like a scorer, which the Lakers could really use. A guy that could just go get a bucket, especially in the half court, because we really struggle with our half-court offense. Rui, I think, is going to help with that because he can operate in the mid-range, but also to have a guy like Terry Rozier that you could give the ball to and he can score at all three levels, I think is huge and beneficial for the Lakers as well, right? He could get into the paint, get to the hoop, he can knock down in the mid-range, he could shoot from the three ball, he could play on the ball, he could play off the ball, he can run your offense if you need him to. So it really gives you some real flexibility. And if you're losing Patrick Beverley and you're losing Lonnie Walker, he's basically gives you that supplement, right? He's, a Kyrie light. Kyrie is the elite version of Terry Rozier, but Terry Rozier is like the wish version, right? A guy that can score at all three levels, that could go off for 20 plus any given night. I could take a lot of pressure and scoring off of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Ideally, you'd like to get some other pieces. Like, I still think the Hornets deal might be one of the best packages, period, if you can get PJ Washington. Because you're not going to have to give up, you shouldn't have to give up any firsts. And if you could get PJ Washington, Gordon Hayward, Kelly Oubre, and PJ Washington, then there you go, right? You get three sizable 3-and-D wings that can all shoot the three ball, that can all, alternate and play multiple positions. PJ Washington is also a young piece for now and the future. So now you basically, even after LeBron leaves, you have PJ Washington and you have Rui Hachimura for the next several seasons, which would be great. And, Gordon Hayward, he becomes an expiring contract next year. And if you don't have to trade your firsts, well, at $30 million expiring contract plus 3 first-round picks in the offseason, because once the Pelicans convey their pick, which is probably the Lakers and we get the Pelicans, well, now you have the 27th, 29th, and you have this year's pick, which will likely be the Pelicans. You could package those 3 with Gordon Hayward in the offseason and maybe try to go get a big deal, right? Like, let's say Kyrie wants to come, right? Could you work something out to where you're sending, maybe you send Terry Rozier and you send Gordon Hayward plus the 3 first and a sign and trade for Kyrie. Like, that's something to keep in mind. I'm not saying that will happen. I'm not even saying that should happen, but it gives the Lakers that option, or Bradley Beal, some star, right? The Lakers love to go big game hunting. The Hornets deal may be able to put you in a position to do that because you shouldn't have to give up any first. Even if you're getting PJ Washington, you're taking on Gordon Hayward and his salary and his injury proneness, and you're taking on Terry Rozier and his long-term salary. Terry Rozier, though, by himself, I think could be a really good fit. And it won't cost much, right? You're giving a second at most. I don't even think you should be giving anything up, but I think if you're giving up, say, 1 second, right? So say you're taking Patrick Beverley, Lonnie Walker, and a second to go get Terry Rozier. Okay, like that I think that is justifiable. And the production that you should get from Terry Rozier, I think would be worth it. And I think that this is definitely a deal that the Lakers could get. And then sort of the last deal that I think is most likely, and I actually think may be the one that gets done, is Buddy Hield, right? So obviously, many people want to see the Pacers deal, period, right? Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, both first. I still don't think that's worth both firsts. Buddy Hield is not getting the traction that Indiana had hoped for him, like they're not getting offers for first round picks. Teams don't really seem like they want to go and trade for Buddy Hield because how many teams, like all of the tanking teams, they don't want him. All of the good teams, how many of them are going, oh man, we're a Buddy Hield away from winning a championship, right? Like most of the better teams already have shooting and already have guys that not only could shoot, but can do more. Like Buddy Hield is very one-dimensional. He is a liability on defense, can't really do anything else, but he could shoot the three ball very, very well, right? He's shooting like 43% on 9 attempts per game. So he is shooting at like an elite level. But the last few seasons, he's really regressed. He's just picked it up this season. So is it just he's having a good season? Or is it that like, no, he's back to being that elite shooter that we know that can shoot 40% if he comes to the Lakers? Now, obviously that would be a huge bolster, right? But he also has long-term salary, $20 million. Like how many teams want to match salaries? How many teams have expiring salaries? Because Indiana's not just going to want to take on long-term salary for the sake of taking on long-term salary. So the Lakers, very likely, if you just got Buddy Hield, you're probably not going to have to give up a first, or it's going to be heavily protected, right? Ideally, you give up 2 seconds, or you do like the Rui Hachimura deal where it's like, we'll give you Lonnie Walker, Patrick Beverley, and, 2 or 3 seconds, and and then we get Buddy Hield. That very likely would be the play. I don't think the Lakers should or will give up a first-round pick for Buddy Hield by himself. And the difference between the Lakers and most of the teams, the Lakers are one of the few teams that absolutely need shooting, like desperately need shooting. And so I really could see them going and trading Patrick Beverley, trading Lonnie Walker, giving up 2 or 3 second-round picks, whatever it takes, as long as they don't have to give up a first, then I could see them making that play, getting Buddy Hield, and now your starting five is basically Dennis Schroeder, Buddy Hield, Rui Hachimura, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. That's a really good starting five, right? You got Buddy who can knock down the three ball, and now he becomes a threat, which opens the paint. Rui can operate in the mid-range, and hopefully his three-point percentage picks back up. Anthony Davis doing Anthony Davis things, Dennis Schroeder doing Dennis Schroeder things, LeBron doing LeBron things. I think that's much better. Now, and you'd still be able to go do the Russ deal if one comes up, right? So let's say some crazy deal opens up. Like let's say the Detroit Pistons are like, hey, we'll take Russ, we'll give you Boyan, Alec Burke, and Nerlens Noels, and you give us, the first. Well, then maybe you could go do that deal and then bring Schroeder off the bench, and there you go, right? And now you have 3 shooters instead of 2. That's something the Lakers could do, but I just think Buddy Hield is the move that you could make. You still have the flexibility. Also, if you want to keep Russ, then what I mentioned with the Hornets dealing Gordon Hayward, you could also do the same thing with Buddy Hield, right? He would be an expiring, $22 million, $21 million contract, which has value. That's kind of a mid-tier contract, which could get you players. And in the offseason, you'd have 3 first-round picks that you could then trade, right? So maybe then you could go take Buddy Hield. So Buddy Hield would help you this season. He's also a piece that could help you for the foreseeable future because he is only 30, right? And he's never been good defensively. So you could have him for the next 5 years as just a 3-point specialist, and it doesn't hurt. And you're probably not going to have to pay him $20 million ever again. So once his contract's up, you're paying him maybe $10 million a year, right? If that, right? So pay him $10 million a year for the next 4 years, give him 4 years, $40 million. He'll still be like 34, 35, and hopefully you can keep that elite 3-point shooting. You could always keep him as like a sniper off the bench. Like that would be fine, right? So if you could go get Buddy Hield, I think that one, it gives you a piece that could really help now and fits a need that the Lakers desperately have, gives you that starting shooting guard. On top of that, he's a piece that you could have long-term, and even more important is he is a reasonable tradable salary, right? Like if Russell Westbrook was like 20 to 25 million, I think the Lakers would have a treasure trove of suitors trying to go trade for Russell Westbrook as a 6th man, right? A lot of contenders would be looking like our bench isn't very good. Like Russ could solve that. Let's do that. But the problem is Russ just has a $47 million contract, which makes it nearly impossible for most teams without having to gut your roster to go get that guy. Well, Buddy Hield, he could be a guy that, hey, he's $22 million. We're a tanking team. let's unload this guy and get those first, right? Or let's do this and go get the Lakers first, right? It just gives the Lakers more flexibility going forward, which the Lakers seem to want to do moves that either A, keep flexibility going forward, Buddy Hield solves that. B, is a move that helps win now, Buddy Hield solves that. And C, is a piece that helps in the future, Buddy Hield solves that. So I think Buddy Hield, out of all of them, is the most likely, I think, at the most reasonable price, and basically checks off all three marks that the Lakers seem to be looking at. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. What do you think? Do you like, which one of these three do you like? Again, I think these three are the most realistic based on the information we have, and are the three most likely to happen based on the information we have, right? Of what the Lakers are looking for, how the Lakers want to operate, and what deals are out there going forward, right? And I think that these three are the most likely. But again, love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Let me know down in the comment section below.